सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ
शान्ति
भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शान्तिः 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 Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah
Okay,
Shivaya.
so we were doing the seventh Anuvaka and we had reached up to Raso Vai Saha, right? So the rest of it now we have to do. And the next one is Rasam Hevayam Labdhva Anandi Bhavati. That is the next part of the mantra. So I am Rasam Labdhva, having obtained that Rasam. And we saw in the last class that Rasam referred to Brahman. So Rasam, I am Rasam Labdhva, having obtained that Brahman, having understood that Brahman is none other than himself. What happens to that person? Anandi Bhavati. That person becomes happiness. So Ananda manifests in that quiet mind of his. And then he says, Ko heva anyatkah pranayat yadesha akashaha anando nasyat. So, yat if esha akashaha ananda nasyat. So this Ananda, this Brahman which is Ananda, Atma which is Ananda, supposing esha nasyat, supposing it did not exist. Now, Akasha can be taken as the inner space of the heart. Brahman, as you know, is supposed to reside in the inner space. So suppose this Atma, which is actually in the nature of Ananda, suppose that Atma was not existing in the inner space, was not there in the person. Kahi eva, so that you have to break up that. Kaha hi eva anyat and kaha pranayat. So that ko hevanyatak pranayat is to be broken as kaha hi eva anyat. That is one sentence. Kaha pranayat is the second phase. So in the Bhashyam we see, if you look at the Bhashyam, you will see that Shankara says anyat means to inhale. Why? Because pranayat here is taken as exhalation. So kaha hi eva anyat, who will indeed inhale, and kaha hi eva pranayat, who will indeed exhale. So this is a proof that if Brahman is not there, if the life principle is not there, there will be no life at all. Breathing will not take place. So that is mentioned here as who will indeed inhale and who will exhale. And that Brahman alone, Esha hi eva anandayati. This Brahman alone brings ananda. So anandayati is basically Vedic usage. It should be anandayati, which means sukhayati, the one who giving ananda. And therefore Brahman is the cause not only of the consciousness in you, but Brahman is also the cause of the happiness. And that is because why? Chit and ananda. Both are there. So these two sentences, they indicate the Chit and Ananda Swarupam of Brahman. And then, if you look at the inert world, the inert world is very beautiful, no doubt, but it lacks three things: existence, consciousness, and Ananda. Without Brahman, none of these three things will be there. Even this existence of the universe is being borrowed from Brahman, right? Brahman is Sat, the existence principle. And therefore, if Jagat, if the universe exists, it is borrowing that existence from Brahman. And therefore, Sat is borrowed, Chit is borrowed, and Ananda is borrowed. All the three aspects of Brahman are borrowed in the creation. But there is a unique thing that the body borrows Sat and the mind borrows Chit. So Sat and Chit are borrowed on a permanent basis throughout your lifetime, and therefore you know experience that I exist and that I am consciousness, and I'm consciousness principle itself. I exist and I am conscious is the meaning of the word I am. The moment you say I am, you have postulated that I exist, and that is why I know that I am. You cannot know that you are if you don't exist, right? And the very fact that you exist can be known only if you are. So Sat and Chit are very deeply integrated. They go hand in hand throughout your lifetime. But what about Ananda? So body borrows Sat all the time. Mind borrows Chit all the time. What about Ananda? The problem is that Ananda is borrowed only once in a way. When those three vrittis which we talked about, Priya, Moda, Pramoda vrittis, when any of those three vrittis are there in your mind, only at that point of time does the mind borrow Ananda. Reflected Ananda is possible only when any of these three vrittis are there. If Ananda were borrowed all the time, there would be no problem, right? So, because you'd be happy all the time. So, really speaking, what Shruti is telling us here, really speaking, there is nothing called Vishaya Ananda. There is nothing called sense pleasures. Nothing, no Vishaya really gives in inverted commas, gives you joy. No Vishaya produces Ananda. What is the job of the Vishaya? What is the job of any object? You know, your ice cream, your something which you like really much, the cricket match, the tennis match, the badminton match, the chess match. What is the job of all these objects? It's very simple. They only create a condition in your mind which is conducive to the manifestation of Ananda. So any of these objects, they create one of these three vrittis. Moda vritti, Priya vritti, or Pramoda vritti. And that vritti is that which reflects the Ananda. So whenever that particular object is instrumental in creating the vritti, I have Ananda. And I mistakenly attribute that Ananda to the object. Instead of saying that, okay, that object has created the environment for my innate Ananda principle to manifest. And therefore, Shastra says again and again and again, whatever objects you have, whatever family members you have, whatever friends you have, don't think that because of them you are having Ananda, you are having joy. That is an error. Your family members should be taken as objects which are there, and your job is to make them happy. You are there for giving them joy, right? Because you are the very, tank of Ananda. You are the very source of Ananda, and therefore you can give them joy. And so if you consider that objects in your life are meant, or events in your life, people in your life are meant for you to make them happier, that attitude that I can give Ananda because I am limitless in Ananda, that is the attitude of Jivan Mukta, right? And if you think that things are giving you joy, people are giving you joy, that's a mistake, and then you are a samsari. As we said, the reflecting media for reflection of Ananda, what we call Ananda Abhasaha, reflection of Ananda Abhasaha. What do we call reflected consciousness? Chidabhasaha. What do we call reflected existence? Sadabhasaha. And similarly, you have Ananda Bhasaha, Ananda Bhasaha. That is the reflected Ananda. And only priyadi vrittihi, priya, moda, pramoda vrittihi can serve as a reflecting medium. So this we have to understand very carefully. And now we will go to the next part of the seventh Anuvaka. So we will say, here it says, Yada hi eshaha etasmin drishaye anatmaye anirukte anilayane abhayam pratishtham vindate atha saha abhayam gato bhavati. Let's look at that. What is the Shruti telling us here? It is saying that earlier, for now, we have to recall what we studied earlier. Brahman was described or revealed as what? As the combined Upadana and Nimitta Karanam. Right? Or Abhinna Upadana Nimitta Karanam was Brahman. And also Ananda Swarupa, only source of happiness. And now Shankara says that that same Brahman, which is the cause of fear for an Ajnani, is the cause of Abhayam, fearlessness for Ajnani. Why does an Ajnani, why do we say that for an Ajnani, Brahman is the cause for fear? Because the Ajnani, by definition, is the triangular format. Triangular format, he has divided Brahman into what? Into Ishvara, Jiva, and Jagat. But that same Brahman, the Jnani is in another format. For the Jnani, there is really no division, because Jnani thinks of the whole universe as what? Anatma and Atma. And really speaking, Anatma is dependent on Atma, therefore it cannot be said to be a separately existing entity. And for a Jnani, therefore, there is nothing other than Brahman, and that Brahman, he is himself. And unless there is something different from you in this world, there is never a cause for fear. And therefore, for a Jnani, that same Brahman is the cause of fearlessness. Okay, so this, Shankara says, this is the Pratignya Vakyam. Pratignya Vakyam means it's a proposition which Shruti is making. What is the proposition? Brahma Asti. That such a Brahman exists. And now we have to, Shruti has to prove that. So Shruti says, Yada Abhayam Prathishtham Vindate. So that's a mantra part which I am reading. Yada Abhayam Prathishtham Vindate. So Yada, when? Abhayam Prathishtham Vindate. So Abhayam Prathishtham literally means with Abhayam, fearlessness, as the substratum, established in fearlessness. So, or fearlessly abiding in Brahman. Yada abhayam pratishtham vindate, when this jnani abides without any fear in Brahman. And again, we have to understand very, very carefully. When I say I am abiding in Brahman fearlessly, what am I saying? There is no Brahman as a seat or as a room where I go and stay. So this abiding in Brahman, we have said this many, many times, is nothing but claiming Brahman as myself, and without any doubts. And why is the adjective abhayam used, fearless? Because as I explained, where duality gets negated and there is only you, Dvaitam is the cause for all fear. When Dvaitam is not there, where is the fear? There's no fear at all, because there's nothing to be afraid of. And therefore, etasmin. Etasmin means in this Brahman. In this, literally. In this Brahman you have to supply. And there is a description. Adrishaye. Adrishaye means not graspable by your sense organs. Indriya agocharam. So this invisible adrishya Brahman. Why invisible? Because it is the experiencer and it cannot be seen. Right? Only every karyam, every product can be experienced. So here adrishya means the very experiencer, the very karanam, the very cause. So adrishya, that Brahman which is the karanam, and anatme. Anatme, Shankara defines as asharire. Anatme, atma here has to be taken as body, but Shankara very carefully says asharire, without a body. And therefore that Brahman which is the karanam, which is the cause, but which has no body, which cannot be verbally defined. So vacha agocharam. Why? Because description of any entity can be done only if the entity has some attributes, some gunas. And Brahman is nirgunam, without attributes. Then anirukte, sorry, that is anirukte. Anatme is without a body. Anirukte means which cannot be defined verbally. Vacha agocharam. Then anilayane. Anilayane means nilayanam is the support, the substratum. Anilayanam means without a support. So literally, this Brahman is not a support of anything. Okay, now we have to understand that very, very carefully because we keep on saying Brahman is Adhishthanam. So what we are saying here, Brahman is not a support. Why is Brahman not a support of anything? Because Brahman is without any gunas. So if something is without gunas, how can it be the locus of any attribute, if any guna? A nirguna vastu cannot be having in itself any gunas. Otherwise, it would not be nirgunam after that. Therefore, Brahman is nirgunam means it cannot be a support. And therefore, anilayanam, it is not a support. That's one reason. Another reason is Brahman is the cause, the karanam, and Jagat, the universe, is the karyam, the product. Now, when you say this, you are actually saying Brahman is the substratum, the supporter, adharam. Brahman is the adharam, the supporter, and Jagat is the adheya, the supported. Then how can you say anilayanam? Because as you the initial introduction is Brahman is karanam, Jagat is karyam. After that, what do you do? Once you go slightly ahead, you say that there really is no Jagat at all. You negate the Jagat as mithya, and therefore there is nothing to be supported. Once Jagat has been negated as mithya, that Jagat is not there to be supported. And therefore, if there is nothing to be supported, this Brahman loses the label of supporter. And that is why anilayanam. So here anilayanam is to negate the concept of dvaitam. It means here advaita, that Brahman which is advaita. So we know that when we first started to study Vedanta, Brahman is always presented as the karanam for the universe. But remember, the moment you say karanam and karyam, you are talking duality. So in the higher stages of Vedanta, we say Brahman is karya, karana, vilakshanam. Neither product nor the cause. And we'll see in Mandukya Upanishad that Gaudapada, he does not even like the use of the word Advaitam. Because the moment you use the word Advaitam, what is the problem?
There could be two, not only one, but that means there is a possibility of.
No, the word Advaitam implies the very fact that you say
that there is no
Advaitam.
other.
one which is not dual, so that means a duality exists. So that's why it's
Exists.
Yeah,
comparative.
exactly.
The
It
moment
was
you
the,
say something has no duality, you are
yeah.
implying there is a duality. And therefore, in Mandukya Upanishad, you will see that even the word Advaitam is frowned upon. Okay. So, what is the learning from all this? Learning from all this is in the next part of the mantra. Atha saha abhayam gato bhavati. Atha saha abhayam gato bhavati. So, atha here means as a consequence to understanding this nature of Brahman, which I am, saha, that jnani, abhayam gataha. He discovers, he goes, gata literally means goes. Abhayam gataha bhavati. He discovers that fearlessness in himself, that emotional self-dependence he discovers. He discovers that he is independent of fear. So we are all born with dependence in this world, but then when we say that I am going to be self-dependent, and you look at Vedanta, self-dependence is nothing but Ishvara dependence because you are Ishvara himself. And therefore, once you understand that I am Ishvara, the very source of independence, then you will no longer seek security. You will be the lender of security. Right? To explain that, when you are ornament, a bangle, a necklace, your very existence, your security depends upon the gold, right? But when you are the gold itself, then you are the lender of existence. You are the lender of security because no ornament can exist without you. So here the word bhayam is to be taken as samsara, emotional insecurity. Every action of a jiva emanates, is born from this emotional insecurity. But when you are emotionally secure, in the knowledge that I am the giver of security, I don't take security, I am the giver of security, then your activities are not governed by a desire for emotional security because you already know that you are emotionally secure, you are Ishvara himself. And therefore, those actions have no objective of getting any security. Such actions are called Leela. That action, which is something like playing, a cricket match where you have already won 5-match series, you have already won 3 matches. You know the series is already won. You still give your best to the other 2 matches. But whether you win or lose, it is of no impact for you because 3-0 is already there. Okay. Now Shruti says, okay, this is the basis for getting security. This Brahman you have to understand, and then only you will be secure. Now, there may be somebody who doesn't want this knowledge, right? He says, I don't believe all this. I reject Vedanta. Then what happens? So Shruti says here, Yada hi esha etasmin udaram antaram kurute. Etasmin udaram antaram kurute. So udaram here is not the stomach. Udaram means stomach, I know in Sanskrit, but here udaram means alpam, small, little. So antaram means difference. Bheda darshanam is antaram. So yada hi eshaha, whenever someone sees udaram api, even the slightest antaram, distinction, right? Now, he only says that whenever somebody sees the slightest distinction. The distinction is between what and what? So he's saying whenever you see even the smallest distinction between Jiva and Ishvara. And again, the moment you see a difference between Jiva and Ishvara, you have got into triangular format. You are Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, Bheda. There's a difference in all 3. And you see this difference. And where do you see this difference? Etasmin. In this Brahman, you see a difference. Means you divide that Brahman into segments. I am there, the Jiva. Ishvara, my creator, is there, and Jagat, the world, is there, which is troubling me. So this is what is meant by whenever I see a difference. Then what will happen? Athaha, after having seen the difference, tasya bhavam bhavati. That person will be afraid. There will be a fear for him, samsara for him. Even Ishvara will become a source of fear if you see him as different from you. And you must recall chapter 11, right? He sees Krishna as different from himself. Arjuna sees Krishna as different from himself in chapter 11 of the Gita, and therefore he panics. So you only need to see, that's the point being made, that there need not be a difference. You only need to perceive a difference, even an imagined difference. That imaginary difference itself is sufficient to cause fear in you. Now, you don't need to see a real snake on that, dark night. You only need to see a perceived snake. The imaginary snake can be the cause of fear. The real snake is not required. And so he says, Tatveva bhayam vidushaha amanvanasya. So, Tveva, tu eva, that same Brahman. So, Tatveva is broken into Tat plus Tu plus Eva. That very same Brahman, which very same Brahman, which is the cause of, becomes the cause of fear for whom? For the one who sees this very little difference in Brahman. Alpam api. That udaram api, the difference when he sees, that same Brahman, which is the cause of fearlessness for a jnani, that same Brahman becomes the cause of fear for the person who sees differences in Brahman. And here you can get confused because the Shruti uses the word Vidushaha, the wise man. The wise man, dictionary meaning of wise man is what? Jnani. Right? But here, how do we say that this person who sees difference in Brahman is wise man? So Shankara explains that there are multiple ways in which you can interpret this word Vidusha over here. It's a very important word to interpret. Vidusha normally means Jnani. And here you are saying that this person, this Jnani, he sees differences in Brahman and therefore he is afraid. So we have to interpret properly. So Shankara says it can be used in Viparita Lakshanya. Viparita Lakshanya means it is being used in a sarcastic manner. Okay. So we call, like if you have somebody who's not very smart in your company, and sometimes you say that Brihaspati said, because that person spoke without thinking, without analyzing. He made a statement. And we said only, Brihaspati said. Brihaspati is a wise person. But the usage of that Brihaspati here is in a sarcastic manner. And that is one way in which the usage of the word Vidusha can be explained. It is in sarcastic form. Then there is another way. It is a person who is Vidusha. He is a Jnani in all the sciences, let us say, in all the aspects of knowledge, which in fact in all Apara Vidya, he is very learned. But he has not learnt Paravidya, and therefore Shastra says he may be a Vidusha in Aparavidya, but actually he is a Ajnani because of he lacks Paravidya. So there is a story, about this what they call a grammarian, a Panani expert. So he was waiting to cross the Ganga, and then the boatman came and picked him up. And boatman, of course, poor fellow, was illiterate. And this Panini expert, this grammar expert, he decided to have a little fun with the boatman. So he asked the boatman, do you know Vyakaran, grammar? So boatman said, no, I don't know. So the expert told him that, 25% of your life is wasted. Then after some time, again he asked the boatman, okay, grammar, Vyakaran you don't know, grammar you don't know. Do you know Tarka Shastram, logic? The boatman said, no, I don't know. So the Panani expert told him, oh, well then 50% of your life is wasted. So again they went some more distance. And then the boatman was asked by him, do you know Mimamsa, analysis? So boatman said, no, I don't know Mimamsa either. Therefore, the Paninian expert said, my God, 75% of your life is wasted. Then there was a huge storm over there, and water entered the boat, and the boat was about to sink. Then the boatman turned around and said, do you know swimming? So Panini said, no, I don't know swimming. And the boatman said, well, in that case, 100% of your life has been wasted. Okay. So here the point being made is that you may know all sort of aparavidya, right? All the astronomy, astrology, physics, chemistry, maths, everything you know. But to cross the ocean of samsara, there is something which you should know, and that is Brahma Vidya. That is the second interpretation. First interpretation was what? The sarcastic manner. Second interpretation was that people who have a thorough knowledge of aparavidya, but none of paravidya. And the third one is the person who has done shravanam and received the knowledge, but has not done mananam and therefore developed conviction. Because this knowledge is useful to you only when you have no doubts about it. Because Shastram says you are Brahman. That knowledge is of absolutely no use to you unless you are doubtlessly convinced of what Shastram tells you, that yes, I am Brahman. And therefore, he adds amanvanasya, for that ignorant person. So amanvan is a person who has only done shravanam but not mananam. And how do you know whether you fall in that category or not? You observe yourself when you talk, right? Talk about Vedanta. Do you say Vedanta says I am Brahman? Or do you say I am Brahman? If you say Vedanta says you are Brahman, you are implying that yes, Shastra says I am Brahman, but I am not able to accept. But if you say with conviction, Aham Brahma Asmi, then the teaching of Shastram, it has become a fact for you. For such a person, Brahman becomes the source of fearlessness. But for the other person, Brahman becomes the source of fear. So the very existence of fear and fearlessness reveals Brahman as the existing source for both. For Bhayam, for the ignorant person, for Abhayam, for the wise person. And therefore he says, Tadapyesha shloko bhavati. In this regard also, there is the following Rig Mantra. Okay, any questions so far? We have finished Anuvaka 7, a very important Anuvaka.
Acharya.
Yes,
So
please.
there are two terms here you mentioned. One is Vidushaha and
Amanas.
Anmanasya.
Yeah.
So in the first you mentioned that Vidusha, it is either sarcastic or somebody who knows the grammar and not other things. So what is essentially the why are these two terms then reflecting the same thing? Are they Vidusha and
No,
Amanvasya?
it is the addition of Amanavan. Amanavan means the one who does not have a mind or does not have the intellect. That is the reason that term is there. If it was not there, Vidusha would simply be Vidusha, right? Jnani. So by adding Amanavan, Shastram is Asya Amanavan. This man without a mind, who is being called Vidusha because of any of these three reasons, for him, Brahman is a source of fear.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No other questions? Right. Now let us look at Anuvaka number 8. So it goes Bhishma Swad Vatah Pavate Bhishod Bhishodeti Suryaha Bhishasmat Agnis Chandrascha Mrityur Dhavati Panchama Iti. Okay, so we'll look at that much. What does the eighth mantra say? It is expanding on that only. So he's saying there is a ring mantra, as we saw. Tadepa tadapi esha loko bhavati. There is a ring mantra. What is the ring mantra? Bhishas, that is Bhisha from fear, Vataha pavate. Because of fear, Vataha is wind. So here it is Vataha Devata. Pavate, the wind blows. The Vayu Devata functions. Bhishasmad, Bhishasmat, because of fear. So the breakup is Bhishasmat Vataha Pavate. Bhisha means Bhayena. So Bhisha Asmat, out of fear of, out of Bhayam, of whom? Of Brahman. Because of fear of Brahman, or Brahman here is Saguna Brahman, okay? Nirguna Brahman one does not fear. So here it is Saguna Brahman. Because of Ishvara, because of the fear of Ishvara, Vataha Pavate, the Vayu Devata functions. The wind blows because of the fear of Ishvara, which is a way of saying that there is a certain order in the universe. There are certain natural forces, just like there is a law of karma, there are certain natural forces also. And the fact that the natural forces adhere to certain laws, they don't behave randomly. The wind blows, this proves the functioning of the devatas, that the Vayu Devata functions. That is proven by what? The wind blows. So this is because of the harmony of creation. And therefore the devatas here can be taken as presiding over individual laws, which is why I said that Vayu Devata means the presiding deity for Vayu. So the assumption here is what? Wherever there is an order, wherever there is no chaos, wherever there is an order, there should be an intelligent principle maintaining the order. And this is what we call Devata. Right? So if you look at those of you who know physics, you will know, right, that there is a law of thermodynamics. It says entropy increases in a closed system. Entropy is the something which goes slowly into chaos. So the chaos in the lack of order, you might say, the lack of order in a closed system increases. Closed system means what? No external order is being imposed. There is no external force trying to maintain the order. In any system where there is no external force maintaining an order, the level of disorder only increases. That is the law of thermodynamics, which is being almost echoed over here. Unless there is an external force, which we call Ishvara, there can be no order in the universe. Order will only increase. Therefore, an intelligent principle is necessary to maintain order. That's what is being said. And then, Bhisho Deti Surya. So, Bhishaha Udeti Surya. Right? Bhishaha Udeti Surya. Surya Udeti, the sun rises. Why? Bhishaha, because of the fear of Ishvara. The Surya Devata does his duties, rising daily, setting daily, because of the fear of Ishvara. Then, Bhishaha Asmat Agnischa Chandrascha. Agni cha Indra cha. It's not Chandra. Agnischendrascha. Out of fear of Ishvara, Agni Devata and Indra Devata, they carry out their respective functions. So Agni's function is what? It's there. The moment you open your eyes, you can see the function of Agni. Agni here is what? Surya, the heat. So evaporation of the waters, keeping your body temperature constant, Agni being there for cooking, any heat function. That is possible only because of Agni Devata. And Agni Devata is doing his function because he is being supervised by Ishvara. Similarly, Indra does his functions. What are his functions? Supervision over the gods, because he is the king of the gods. Also, Indra is in direct charge of rains, thunder, and lightning. So you have ministers who are in charge, but they keep certain portfolios with themselves. So while Indra Devata is the king of the gods, he has one portfolio all to himself: rains, thunder, lightning. So that also functions because of Ishvara's supervisory capacity only. Then Mrityur Dhavati Panchamam iti. So apart from these four, which four? Vayu, Surya, Agni, Indra, Panchama iti. There is a fifth one. And what is that? Mrityuhu. And what does Mrityuhu do? Dhavati, runs. Okay, you can understand Mrityuhu is who?
Yamaraja.
Yamaraj. And why Dhavati? Why does he run?
Mm.
He's not running away from Ishvara, okay? He's running. He's running because he's very busy, right? He has to pick up bodies from here and there all the time. Lots of bodies. A lot of people die every day. So, and he's very busy with that. He runs all the time. He does that because of his fear of Ishvara, because of the order of Ishvara. And Shankara says, he gives a commentary saying that just like the employees of a king, they function. Why? Because they're afraid of him. In the same way, he says that all the devatas function because they are afraid of Brahman. What is the conclusion? Therefore, Brahman exists. Remember, we are giving all this 7 arguments we have given for the existence of Brahman. If you go back and see, you will see that the first argument was that Brahman is the nimitta karanam for the universe. Therefore, Brahman exists. Then, Brahman is obtaining as the very jiva, in the form of a jiva. Therefore, Brahman is. The third argument was what? Brahman is the upadana karanam. First was nimitta karanam. Second was he is existing in the very form of the jiva. Third is Brahman is the upadana karanam also. Therefore, he exists. The fourth was Brahman is Sukritam, that we saw in the last class. Sukritam and Brahman is Rasaha. So these 2 arguments also we saw. Then Brahman is the very consciousness principle. Achetana Sharire Cheshtam. Very consciousness which exists in all inert bodies. That is Brahman. And the last 7th one is Brahman is because both fear and fearlessness, they are all born from Brahman only. Okay. Now, these are all what? These are not Shruti. Remember, all these points which we saw so far, Shankara has presented how? As the logic for the existence of Brahman. But in Shruti, in Vedanta, especially in Advaita Vedanta, we don't accept that Brahman can be primarily proved through logic, right? Brahman is beyond logic, we say. Tarkena na apaneya. Where did you hear that? Tarkena na apaneya. you've not heard it, I will recommend that you go over all the previous Upanishads. Okay, anyway, so Brahman is beyond logic, we say. Because if Brahman could be proved by logic, then Brahman need not be proved through Vedanta, right? So there is a group of the group philosophers, Nyaya Tarkikas. They are basically Nyaya philosophers, so they are called Tarkika philosophers, logicians. They say that they can prove existence of Brahman through reasoning. And in fact, there's a very long discussion in Brahma Sutra where Shankaracharya establishes that Brahman cannot be proved through logic because the data available for Brahman is not available through the 5 pramanams. Your ears, eyes, all those 5 pramanams that you have, they cannot give you any data about Brahman. Any logic depends upon some data, right? You cannot use data from your eyes or your ears because Brahman is Indriya Agocharam. And therefore, where is the data available? Data is available only in Vedanta. And therefore, you can't say that logic is the primary, reasoning. Logic is there. But, and in Shastram, we say logic is of 2 types. One is scripture-based logic, which we call Shrautra Tarka. Shrauta Tarka. Shrauta Tarka means scripture-based logic. And one is called Kevala Tarka, independent logic. So we say that Brahman can be proved through Shrauta Tarka, logic based on the scriptures, where the Shastram is the primary source, primary pramanam, and logic is supporting. So logic to prove Brahman can be supporting logic. But the primary source of knowledge about Brahman, about data about Brahman, is from scripture only. And therefore, if scripture is not brought into the picture, pure logic is not capable of proving Brahman because there is no data at all. All this we'll discuss when we do Brahma Sutras. Brahma Sutra talks about this deficiency. And this deficiency can be handled when Shastram is used. That is why Shraddha is so important for all of us. For a seeker, for a Vedantin, Shraddha is very, very important. And therefore, you can never discuss the topic of Atma or Brahman with somebody who has no Shraddha in the scriptures, because such a person looks only for pure independent logic, Kevala Tarkam, which does not give any data at all. There is no data. How can you use independent logic? Independent logic, when you say, you are using logic and by gathering data through your eyes and ears and all those, but through the world. Worldly data is of no use for proving Brahman. Kevala Tarkam, pure logic, uses only worldly data. And therefore, there is never any point entering into any discussion with a person who says, I don't believe in Veda. When somebody says that, we say, fine, namaste, be nice meeting you, and we go off. For us, it is always Shastra Pramanam, which is the primary Pramanam, and logic is always supporting. Right? Logic is always supporting. Supporting means what? To reinforce what is taught by Shruti. So, logic is the tool for us, which helps in reinforcing the jnanam. The jnanam which is received from Shastram, that jnanam is reinforced by using logic. Primarily, the source is Shastram only. Okay, this is the answer to the first question. What was the first question asked long ago?
Does Brahman exist?
Very good. The first question was, does Brahman exist? And the long-winded discussion was answer to the first question. What is the answer to the second question? What is the second question in the first place? There were two more questions. Second question was, will a wise person attain Brahman after death? Right? In fact, only two questions were asked. Will a wise person attain Brahman after death? Will a Ajnani attain Brahman after death? And we said that before answering these two questions, there's one more primary question, and that is, does Brahman exist at all? That question has been answered. Okay, now here two questions are there, but right now that question is not being answered. That question will be answered later. So here ends the first part of the Shruti. Now, from the word Saisha Anandasya Mimamsa Bhavati, a very important topic begins. Topic is called Ananda Mimamsa, analysis of Ananda, right? So, analysis of Ananda, the word Mimamsa comes from the word Manaha, mind, and therefore Ananda Mimamsa means analysis of the topic of Ananda. This is a very long topic. The rest of the Anuvaka is there, the long Anuvaka. So we'll stop here. We'll pick it up in the next class. Any questions?
Acharya?
Yeah.
This objection, I mean, this point raised by the Tarkavadis that Brahman can be proved by logic.
Yeah.
Weren't they also one of the people to say all pramanam is anadhikatam? That is, all source of pramanam is unique. So they are negating themselves also, no?
No, but that is because they don't accept that Shastra is the source of, Brahman knowledge.
Oh.
Because to accept the Shastra is the source of Brahman knowledge, you have to see, these logicians, Tarka Shastris, they accept Veda, right? But what they say, unlike us, they say that logic is primary, Veda will give you supporting data. We say in reverse. We say the data comes from Veda, logic is supporting logic. There's a difference between a Vedantin and Tarka Shastri.
Yes, thank you. What do they accept Vedas for in that case?
The data is there very much, but you use logic to prove Brahman, and then once having proved with logic, then you say, okay, it's available here, also available in Shastram. Shastram says Brahman exists.
Okay. Thank you.
But you see the fault there, right? Any logic has to be based on what? On data. Data can only be gathered pratyaksham. Which is why when you say, for example, when you give that fire on the mountain example, the initial data is what? You have seen that where there is smoke, there is fire. That's pratyaksham. Based on that, you can do anumana. Without that logic, how do you do anumana?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so with this, we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om Om.